And we're live. What's shaking, killers? Today is, what is it, the 16th of October? And yeah, here we are doing state of the networks again with Joey. Sorry to get my comments and reactions up so I can see what's going on YouTube. If you're watching this on X, or I think I stopped trying to do LinkedIn because it was broken, or Twitch, all the comments, or the only comments that I see are the ones coming in on YouTube, which is over at The Gristle King. So, all right, top of the news, Onakoi. So I've been working with these really fancy antenna manufacturers, Callian and Tally, it's not Talleyrand, Tally something, Talisan, I think out of Canada. And they make these like $27,000 antennas. And I've convinced them to send me some antennas down for GNSS that are these choke ring antennas that are supposed to be super badass. They said, yeah, we'll give them to you on loan. So they're going to send me down a couple antennas. I'll test them so that if you are considering getting a super expensive antenna for Onakoi or GeoNet or whatever, you'll have good data to base your decision on. And then I've also asked them to send me a couple cheaper options, but I was like, hey, send me the best because I want to see what that's like. And God knows I love antennas.
Yeah, I can't imagine those other ones are centimeter level accuracy. So I don't know what you're getting with.
Yeah, I think it cleans up like the multipath stuff, so it may not be as appropriate for what I'm doing, which is like I'm in a suburban environment. There's not a ton of multipath anyway because there's not a ton of huge buildings around me. But we'll see. I think that's the thing is we'll track all the stats, and with the SparkFun and the Septentrio backend, you can see what's going on and you can log things. It's all pretty professional. So they are asking in return for sending these down and just talking about them. It's like, hey, send us your output. So each one will get 10 days up on the roof. We get a solid kind of 10-day window, and then we'll see, okay, what kind of difference do each of these things make? So
awesome.
Let's see. That was Onakoi, which I forgot to do the overlay for. Next up, I've got Anyone. So if you've been on the Anyone network and you're running a relay, you can see it in the background there, that little pulsing blue light. They just did their first batch of incentivized testnet rewards. There's disperse those, so check your wallets if you are running Anyone. Let's see. Helium stuff. If we go to Helium ecosystem, cool. This is where you start to come in, Joey. But the big thing is the app, the V2.9.0 update, I think, which for those of us who've been on the whatever the testing thing is since it all started, this is kind of old news for us. But for the rest of you scum suckers, this is pretty new. It's a new look to the app, and then I think HIP 110, the proxy voting, is now available in app, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, I can add a little more context on what's going on with the app. We're sort of calling it the super app. So there's the Helium wallet app, there's the Helium mobile app, there's the Helium builder app. Each of them have wallet interfaces. It's like a whole, ecosystem of apps that you have to kind of sort your way through. So the direction for that redesign that you're seeing in test flight is to consolidate a lot of that stuff. So there's no reason builder app should exist, really. Like a lot of that stuff can exist within the Helium wallet app. And some of this is like remnants of when makers had their own apps, right? So
nice. Yeah. How it all get combined. Cool.
Yeah. So hopefully a lot smoother for new people coming in too. Just, one unified home for all that stuff.
Oh, interesting. We'll have to talk about
of
that
course,
more.
Killer designer Pete is sort of spearheading all of the visual there.
Pete's getting after it. Yeah.
It's going to be spicy. Yeah.
Cool. I'll come back because I've got some questions on that, but we'll do Hivemapper stuff first. They've got an AMA today. I don't think we've missed it. I didn't see the time for it, but if you want to check on what's going on with them, they are crushing there. We'll have to come back to Sigvard's thing about the data-only hotspots. Let's see. Let's do DIMO. So DIMO is just announcing a bunch of stuff. 25,000 followers on X. That's cool. They're doing the DePIN Tracker. And then Rob and Alireza from Natix had a Spaces last week. I think this is really good to see all of these projects start working together. I'm working on putting a bunch of different projects together for I don't know if it's super secret yet, but I'm also not sure if I'm supposed to talk about it. But I think across the space, what I want to see on the kind of Goldhawks consultant side and really for DePIN in general is that the projects work together as much as possible. Let's see. Yeah, JProxy voting is part of the new app. For Wingbits, I think this is their new logo. I'm pretty sure it is. I think I got the colors right. Thanks, Kevin, for doing that. Kevin at Flywheel. So we just did a recent DePIN State with them. That was like a 15-minute thing I did with Robin. I think the huge news out of there is they oversubscribed their round, which is good to see the investors kind of starting to pile in on these things. And they dropped the new hardware or the pre-orders for the Wingbits only station made by HiFix, which is GeoNet's arm, as well as a Wingbits and GeoNet station. So if you don't have either, you can get one combined. I think it's about $1,000. So it's not the cheapest thing out there, but looks pretty cool. It's like a UFO antenna with a big stick on top of it. So that's what's going on there in Spexiland. They're launching almost 2,000 Spexigons in Philadelphia at $8 per hex. So my math isn't that great, but that's about 16 grand worth of Spexigons if you're a drone pilot in the Philly area. And the last time we talked about them, someone had driven from Detroit to Florida. So I'm assuming that whoever did that is probably going to drive back up to Philly and and keep on mapping and crushing. All right, the Srcful, this is their new logo because we just pulled it off yesterday. Well done again, Kevin. They got their new logo. So I think we talked about this last week. The hardware miners on Srcful, we're going to get a multiple. They've now hammered that out to there's no multiple, it's just 1x. If it's a verified hardware, it gets 2x, and software gets 0.15x. So I can't say not worth it to do software, but if I was participating in that, I would be getting a verified hardware unit, which I might do. I haven't had time for that. WeatherXM news.
You probably already got it.
Yeah. What's that?
If in the dual mining approach with the existing Helium hardware, it's probably already on a shelf for you.
Oh, maybe. Well, the Helium unit I run at home is a DIY, so I don't think it's not a rack V2. I could figure it out. It's not super hard. Let's see. So WeatherXM, this was just a personal thing. Is I bought, and I try and do this with most projects. A lot of projects will reach out and be like, "Hey, can we give you free shit?" And for the most part, I found like it's just a pain in the ass to get free shit, and it's also like it's not worth it. You're giving me like a $200 device and then expecting me to do like $1,000 worth of work to promote it. So usually it's just easier for me to buy the thing at whatever the market price is, use whatever the discount is that they have, if they have one. In this case, I wanted to use the crypto discount because I wanted to see how it worked. It was kind of a pain in the ass to get over to Arbitrum, but once I was there, it was fine. I ordered it on last Friday, and it's supposed to be here tomorrow. And I didn't put anything in there like, "Hey guys, I'm special. Can you ship this faster?" So I think that's just how fast they're shipping, which is pretty amazing. I thought that was super cool. Let's see. And they're asking in their Discord for an animal mascot. They want to come up with some animal mascot to represent them. So I think that's cool too, as we're seeing, these projects say like, "Hey, we want to be a little bit more official. We want to have mascots." So yeah. Let's see.
I love the Srcful squirrel has been a favorite.
Oh, is there a Srcful squirrel? Yeah. Oh, cool. Look at that little devil.
Or a little hamster, I guess. Yeah.
Nice.
I shouldn't call it a squirrel. Yeah.
On the Natix side, they just had a Q3 report drop. So 26,000 new drivers, 23 million kilometers covered, 100 million events detected, 4 new DePIN projects. I think that's the thing to focus on is what projects are partnering with the other projects and making sure that everybody wins together. And I think Natix is doing a great job on that. And then the last thing I've got for DePIN project news is this Frodobot stuff. They have just launched their humans versus AI competition. I think it's called the Earth. I know it's called Earth Rover. And if you go on X and look for Frodobots and Earth Rover, you'll see what the latest is. And then the other thing I thought was cool is Messari had this article. I think Dylan Bain put it out on how we characterize DePINs. And his argument is, Joe, I think you and I have been on the well, I'll just speak for myself. I've been on the snobbier side saying like, hey, if it doesn't have hardware and if it doesn't have kind of custom hardware for what you're doing, I would not like to see it called a DePIN, call it a DVIN, call it something else. But Dylan's point was like, hey, don't be an idiot. Grow the whole space together. Let everybody come in. Let them all call themselves DePIN. Like the thing we're doing is building this giant thing. So I thought that was a good point. So I think that's it. Make sure that if you want help with DePIN stuff and deploying miners, you check out Flywheel Systems. They are down at the bottom right of my screen. And Kevin at Flywheel has been the one who did all the graphics for this thing. So make sure you support him if you can. And then Goldhawks, of course, if you're a project and need help with consulting, reach out to us. We'd love to help you. I've got actually a pretty cool project right now on location verification. So I would love to talk to any DePIN projects who want to make sure that the location they're putting out there is correct. That's it. I think time. We're well under 15 minutes. Now we're under 10.
Solid. Yeah. Getting it. That whole segment's polished now.
It's getting better, yeah.
You got the
Let's see.
slides, you got everything in there.
Yeah. Got pegs, shocks, got everything.
Mhm.
Siegfried asks, let's see, last week you talked about data-only hotspots activating onboarding for commercial partners going live likely on 10/14. What's the haps on that, dog?
Still in the can. So,
It remains
no,
in the
it's
can.
it is happening.
Okay.
I just pulled up a wallet where there's a bunch of onboards happening as much as 2 hours ago. So we're 2 days late, but the first set of commercial partner gateways are being added to chain. So we'll start to see those flooding in. They'll be represented as hotspots alongside everything else. They'll be classified as data only. Um, so yeah, exciting to start seeing that happen.
Badass. Let's see. Jade asked this earlier, but just so we get it on the screen, proxy voting, and I wanted to talk about this Helium app anyway. Proxy voting is part of this new app. Yep, sure is, and I think Siegfried answered it. Let's talk a little bit more about this this app, Joey. Let's see if I can move this thing. Yeah. Oh yeah. So and Joey has his Gristle King shirt on. I forgot to.
Oh, I was hiding under your comment there. Yeah. So let's see. Where to start? I've had some conversations with folks where the onboarding experience is still confusing for people coming into the ecosystem, right? Like, I think, everyone that's listening is totally comfortable with the idea that, like, oh, you buy the thing, you set up the app, you're right. But if you're coming in new, you're like, well, where's the sign up button? Like, I want to click a sign up button on the homepage, right?
Yep.
And so we have to start reaching all of those people in a really seamless way. And so it's a little bit confusing, when you buy your mobile hotspot, it's got a little card in there that says download this app. You can sign in with Google or you can sign in with a wallet. Well, what's a wallet? Like, that's this other thing. You go download that, you go create an account, you write down these 12 words. Like, you can see how these things just kind of stack up. And so what we're seeing with this new wallet is an opportunity to clean up and simplify, the existing Helium wallet app, which has had just a bunch of stuff piled into it, right? I'm talking about proxy voting, not to mention just voting and everything else that's going on in there now. And so Pete came up with like a really clean way to segment out those actions. So like, there's a wallet view, there's my hotspots view, there's a governance view. There can be a view for the energy network, right? Like, let me do the stuff that pertains to, my gateways in that regard. And so this will be a lot of like sort of pushing peas around on the plate for the existing app. A lot of that code is being reused. But there's going to be a lot of sort of net new stuff too, where there's a onboarding flow for mobile hotspots that's totally revamped. So people aren't having to wait for those Solana transactions to go through and, possible failures due to like whatever token stuff.
Yep.
So that'll basically just all happen in a process, and then your completed hotspot's going to be like drop straight into your wallet. So there's a bunch of sort of user experience stuff that's going to make that whole thing smoother. It's the goal. And so I think this is going to start to cascade into like other things that, like I'm talking about this login button, like how do we sort of create that just product experience so that people can hop in, see their hotspots, buy a new hotspot, onboard a new hotspot, think about, bringing sensors onto the network, all that kind of stuff in the Helium app, right? The Helium ecosystem.
Okay. Yeah. Badass. That'd be cool. So I guess at the end of it, we're just going to have like when the perfect thing happens, we're going to have one app that does everything.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still very excited to see community apps out there. Like, there's Helium Geek is doing just killer stuff, analyzing and visualizing a lot of what the network is doing. And I don't want to take away from that. I still sort of believe strongly that those people in the ecosystem, should be celebrated. So this is going to be really focused on like the onboarding and the management and things like that, the things that those apps don't do. But if you want that sort of, deep analysis, those apps still serve a purpose.
Cool. Yeah. Love it. Let's see. We talked, Joe, you and I talked about this disaster response for Helium hotspots. We ended up actually talking to Shawnee at K38 doing the jet ski rescue stuff, and she had some super good ideas. Like, she's got a ton of experience.
Yeah. I have not stopped talking about that conversation, I think, since it happened.
Oh, right.
You should tell her that.
I'll pass it on.
She sent over that, like, how to prepare for disasters PDF guide.
Oh my God, she's got so many PDFs, yeah.
It's the most, like, information-dense thing of that type that I've ever seen.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. She does not mess around. I mean, she's done some real amazing work rescuing, and God, maybe I'll get her on the show and we'll just talk about like nothing to do with Helium, just her rescue stories. And she hates talking about herself, but it's at the same time, she's done some pretty rad stuff and cool to share.
And I think it's important. Her stories, so a little bit of context for, I guess, people listening, right? Like, she is effectively the foremost expert in jet ski rescue, like waterborne rescue, in disaster scenarios, in surfing competitions, sort of everything in between, right? She's just like a dolphin in the water. But also incredibly, I'd say she would not call herself technically enabled or technically, whatever the right, but she sends over her gear list and there's like flipper zeros and Meshtastic. Like, she's got all of the gear and she's like puts the time into learning it. So, so anyway, the context was, Nick, you set me up to talk with her, and she gave a lot of really, really great insight into thinking about the conditions and needs of people that are out there doing rescues. Right.
Yep.
And so I went home that weekend and started like building as the thing that I can do. Right.
Yeah. Totally.
Let's see if I can put this together. But this Helium beacon project, we're sending these things out. There's a dozen or so of them out there already deployed with various organizations. So I want to go back together the way I did it. But the cool thing is, like, Starlink exists, right? It's an amazing tool to go put out in the field. But there's this user experience layer still where it's like, well, I have to go to the thing. I have to ask what the username and password is. I need somebody there to tell me, or there needs to be a sign. I can't do Wi-Fi calling. Like, my phone doesn't, work like a phone. And so the cool realization is, like, we've got Helium mobile hotspots. There's all of the carrier partnerships are like available. Well, not all of them, most of them. And so we can just like enable all of those phones to like roam straight in there. And so what we've done is sort of set up this beacon project. We put out a landing page. We put out a bunch of blasts. People reached out. We're sending them hardware. We're sending them Starlinks. Yep. And ultimately, like, these disasters aren't going to stop. And so the goal now is like, how can we be prepared, right? How can we get this stuff in the hands of people who need them now? Yep. So when these things happen, they can roll their trucks, they pop up a J-pole or whatever on the back of the truck, and now they are a mini cell tower, right? So the team, Abai, Nova Labs team, we've cobbled together this kit, basically, and it's 3 Helium mobile hotspots. There's a switch, there's the Starlink, and then there's a number of routes for power. So either generator, you can go solar. There's a bunch of stuff there, and so we're building all of that out. Yeah, and then
this looks badass, dude.
Yeah, so this was what I spent my weekend building or designing, and then this is the first time I've ever done sheet metal design.
Okay, it's super fun, right?
It's a totally different way of thinking, because I'm usually like, it's going to be 3D printed and that's my end state. But this one I sent off for actual manufacture.
It doesn't look like you built that in your, well, at least it doesn't look like I would build that in my garage. It looks a lot cleaner.
This is my garage.
Is it? No, badass.
Yeah, I'm in my garage right now.
Yeah, okay. Your garage looks different than my garage.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
so everything
yeah,
just
so
gets
these
chucked
will,
into this thing.
yep, these will all be what 3/16 aluminum. I don't want to
Aluminum,
repeat
yeah.
too much. And then there's a couple of studs, so it's basically designed to be put together with as minimal tool set as possible. So I'm going wing nuts, I'm going trailer hitch pin and stuff like that.
Yep.
Everything lives on top of a J-pole. Super ubiquitous, also very cheap and easy to ship. And then you bolt this thing down to whatever you need to, and you've got literally a mini cell tower. So
nice. And so the
kind of
hotspot
excited
and Starlink goes into that? What I missed? I'm sure I missed something there.
Yeah, so I got the Starlink here. The hotspots sit sort of around the radius of the pole.
Okay.
And then the Starlink has a pole mount adapter.
Really
and so it'll basically sit. I left it over there, but it's right here.
Yep.
So hotspots will kind of live down here. Starlink sits on top. The whole thing is just in the footprint of about 1.5 by 1.5.
Love it.
Cube. So yeah, nice and tidy.
Dig it, dude. Super cool.
So yeah, I hope as these parts come in that everything fits and works and is great. 3D printing is a great validator of this stuff, but of course you got to get it in hand.
Yeah, and you got to be able to design the thing in the whatever 3D printing thing. I know you've been on me for a while. Like, dude, just go figure it out. It's not that hard. But every time I open it up, I'm like, oh, for Christ's sake, I got to learn an entirely new system.
Every time I open that program, I'm learning something new. And yeah, the sheet metal flow was one of those things, and I'm, fingers crossed that the parts show up the way I think they will. But I don't really know how that stuff works yet.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. Ed wants the Starlink for the tower. Yeah.
Yeah.
We all want Starlink for our towers, Ed. You just got to buy
it. Yeah. I think another cool note is like this 3D file, like assuming it works. I don't want to blast it out there if it's just kind of garbage, but once I get these things in hand, I'll open source it. So you can download the files, you can send it to like send, cut, send or whatever.
Yep.
And get one made or 1,000 made. So hopefully it'll be a helpful tool in that regard.
Yeah. That's super cool. Yeah. Rad.
Yeah.
Ultra rad. Let's see. What else is going on? I've got, I wanted to talk about the emergency stuff. We talked about the apps. The event that I talked about last week, I'm slowing down a little bit on that. I wanted to do it November 2nd. Then I was like, dude, I just don't have time to do a good job by November 2nd. So I'm pushing out to at least December. But it looks like Nova will be supporting that with some hotspots. So that's pretty cool. That's the last email that I got from those guys. So it'd be super fun to do that. And it was funny. They're like, hey, are you going to be the one who owns these hotspots, or is it the location, the coffee shops and the rest? I'm like, them. Like, I don't want to deal with that shit. And I also want them to feel like they're getting the whole thing. That seemed like that would be a rotten way to do it if Nova sends down hotspots and then I get some like stream off of that for free. It's like, oh no, that's not how we're going to do it. We're going to make it so it's awesome for them, because we want people to be converted. I think that's, to the point of the app earlier, you want normal people to be able to come in and say, okay, cool. I get this. I understand it. I understand the workflow, and there's this extra benefit. I think a lot of the Helium mobile stuff now sounds too good to be true, where Lee and I were just doing our books for this last year, and I looked at, I think at the beginning of the year, we still had Verizon, and it's like, oh, $187. Then I argued with them and got it down to $147 for 2 phones. And then you see it just goes away, and it's like, oh, Helium, $40, 2 phones. Like, that's, people just aren't used to that. And you
pay with the crypto. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can pay the crypto. So it's basically zero for me. If I want to sell it, which all this stuff is like, I'm not doing anything with that if I can help it.
Well, I saw a thing from Coco. She was floating around like, would you give up your mobile mapping rewards just to not pay the bill? So like, in other words, they would do it on the back end.
So it'd just be automatic. As long as you leave those on, you get a free plan. Huh.
Yeah. I think it's something that the Helium mobile team is kind of noodling around with a bit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I'm curious to see if folks who are watching this are like, yes, I would immediately do that, or if like they're all crypto degens are like, I'm never giving up my tokens.
Sure. Go find Coco on Twitter and like give her feedback. 'Cause I think she had some posts out trying to get some
Trying to figure that stuff out. Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see what else. I cleaned up my garage this weekend, which is kind of fun. Just getting rid of a bunch of crap. I have a bunch still of the CBRS radios that are sitting in boxes. Like someone sent me 5 of those things or 6 of those things. I don't have a place to put them. So again, if you're in CBRS land and you are loving on that shit, let me know. So I sent out a bunch of IoT hotspots last week to a guy in Buffalo, maybe. And he was psyched on them. And I threw, Joe, you like this. So I had all these IoT hotspots. I didn't have a place to put them. We've talked about it on the show before. And this guy reached out. He's like, hey, I saw the show. I've got a ton of places to put them. I'd love to put them up and create coverage. Like, okay. And I threw in a couple sensors. And when he got the box, he's like, dude, this is so cool. I got these sensors. And it's like, oh, just hook one more person at a time.
Love it. That's the best thing to hear.
Yeah, on the sensor side. And then someone came into the GK server this week saying that they wanted to track birds. So they wanted a really lightweight tracker. The last time I looked at this, there's a LoRa, not a LoRaWAN, but a LoRa tracker on Tindy that is called the NAT, GNAT, and it's by Tlera Corp, TLERA. I should probably take this thing off. And that thing is tiny. And the guy that does Tlera Corp also has a couple other LoRaWAN devices that are pretty small. But I think, I haven't talked to Miroslav in a while over at Heliotics, but he might also have something because they used whatever that was to track that lynx. But I think the bird tracking stuff is probably pretty cool.
Does Green Metrics did the lynx tracking.
Was it? Okay. Oh, I thought it was Heliotics.
Yeah. Bird tracking, though, there's a company called Miro Micro that builds a bird tracker.
Okay.
And it's a little thing with 2 little antennas and a solar panel on the top.
MIRO?
They are not. MIRO.
Miro
Micro. Yeah.
Micro? God, I gotta put my glasses on. I'm looking at this stuff, so I can put this up.
And I've had the opportunity to. That's exactly it.
Okay.
I've had the opportunity to chat with them and kind of hang out with that team a bit at some of these IoT events. They're very sharp on, antenna design and things like that. So worth checking out.
Okay. Cool. Let's see. Oh, Siegfried. I bet many in the Helium community that are concerned. Let me see if I can get this off your head, Joey. Concerned about gaming will love to learn about the proof of location project. Yep. I just don't know that I can talk a ton about it yet. I think like the general idea is, and this is worth putting out here, is that all these different projects are all tracking location, whether it's DIMO or Helium or anyone or whatever. And some of them are not tracking location specifically or that specific for anyone. It's an anonymous network. So if you get down to the, closest couple kilometers, that's good enough for them. But for all of these different, whatever, Wingbits, Spexi, Srcful, like they all want to make sure that the thing is where it's supposed to be. And that is the difficult thing to solve for. And so the general idea that we're working on at Gold Hawks is to coordinate across a ton of different DePIN projects and say, basically, all projects feed in their location data to a centralized engine. And maybe the engine gets decentralized in the long term, but it gets run by someone like Onakoi. So Onakoi already has the GNSS precision positioning piece down. They've got that piece, and because they have the access to compare across their network what's going on with, I think it's called the ephemera stream. Basically, they have their way to prove location. If everything gets sent in to them and then it gets cross-referenced across every other project, you don't have perfect proof of location, but you've got a much better way to verify a general location than you would if you just lived within your own project. So, and as you start to work across protocols and say, okay, well, this project does GPS and LoRaWAN, and this project does GPS and Bluetooth, and this project does GPS and Wi-Fi, and this project does et cetera, et cetera. Any of these, radio access technologies, as long as they have GPS and something, and especially if they have GPS and something and something and something, like a couple things, that starts to get pretty interesting, and you start to have the ability to really track location across different pieces. There is a project building in Stealth right now that's doing some mapping stuff. That's pretty cool. And when that comes out, that'll be pretty awesome.
I'm a big fan of that approach. That was something that we discussed a lot with the Srcful HIP, is the ability for those two networks to sort of cross-verify.
Yep.
And the more times you do that, the more bulletproof it becomes.
Yeah. Yep. So I think that's interesting. And then, I've got some other, like, I've got so much news. It's like, part of it is just competitive in nature. Is like, I don't want to let too many people know what we're doing until it's done. Just cause it's like straight competition stuff. But man, there's some super fucking exciting shit going on right now. I'm so fucking pumped on this.
Love it. Yep.
Let's see what else I still have on the back burner to do a bunch of IoT stuff. I want to make a like a shareable open source dashboard, because I see people asking when the Medio Scientific app went down because people weren't using it. I still had people every so often, they'll come up like once a month and be like, hey, how do I do this? And right now I'm just like, oh, go to DataCake because that's the closest thing. And it's DataCake's okay, but I would love to show people like, hey, if you get a Raspberry Pi and you just plug this thing in and you let it run a Grafana, et cetera, with some InfluxDB or like a couple different things, and here's how to do it. You can just run your own thing. You can display it to whoever you want to display it. If you want to put it out on the internet, you can do that. If you want to keep it in your house, that's fine too. But a little bit like Home Assistant does now, but a little bit geekier and maybe a little bit more customizable.
You kind of want the, for lack of a better term, like the Squarespace of data viz. Like,
yeah.
I think this is kind of the thing that I've always tried to, I've wanted to figure this out too. And it's hard to skirt the balance between like, do I want to let people edit the code, or should this be like drag and drop widgets? And that in-between state is a little odd, especially when you're dealing with like whatever kind of data.
Although I think AI, really like ChatGPT, is changing that, right? But
right, and that's where it's beautiful now. You can just tell it to build something.
And it's pretty close, right? You can build at least an ugly site really fast. And I think you can take whatever. So I think the general idea is to put out an open source base template and then maybe just do a video with ChatGPT. I did one of these with my niece last week where she's like, oh, I'm having all these problems. I'm like, dude, let's get on the call. I'll just show you how to use ChatGPT and you're off to the races. And at the end of it, she's like, oh, I just wasn't using it in that way before, where you basically ask it everything. Let's see. Siegfried. So probabilistic proof. I assume it's not the correct word of location. Let me see if I can add this to the site. Yeah. Yep. So it doesn't make it's not perfect. Exactly right. But if you have to, as a gamer, if you have to buy all these different miners and run them all and spoof them all, it just gets a little bit harder. And so the idea is that it focuses the difficulty down to the individual user to game, to spoof, and distributes the difficulty across the project. So it's a pretty small lift for each project, but it makes it much more difficult for each gamer. Yeah, I think that's it. And it gets better the more devices participate. Yeah. And that's what we're aiming to do. I don't think that's going to be particularly easy, but I'm sure there's other ways to do it. I think I've talked to Max, and he's got this point. He's like, why do we even have to have location for a lot of these things? Why don't we focus on something else? And he's super smart. And so there's probably a lot to that. Joey, you want to take this one? Can you touch on the IoT working group nominations?
Oh yeah. Nominations are open. So yeah, if you're interested, or if you know of somebody that should be interested, you can point them to the IoT working group channel. I believe Waveform has a form up there where we can kind of get some inbound going. I lean on Waveform for everything governance. He's just the master of it.
You've been doing Yeah.
But the group right now is relatively small. And as a reminder, the working group now administrates 10% of the IoT Ops Fund. And so, we should get people in there so that we can sort of have, the diverse set of perspectives on how to allocate and, dole that out for various grants and things over the next couple of quarters. And if we do that well, we'll just keep that sort of 10% going. So as a time to get involved is a very good time to get involved.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think one of the things there is I haven't gone for that partly because I just don't have the time and partly because I want to apply for some of those grants. And I think it's going to be a conflict of interest if I'm
Well,
in there,
yeah.
even if
So
I'm recusing myself. It's like, fuck it. I'll make it
we've
clean.
talked pretty extensively about that, and it turns out the people that would be doing those grants are also the people that we really want on the working group. And so, time aside, we really do want to make sure that those people can join and participate, and there's a clear path to recusing yourself. And the whole working group should sort of keep that in mind.
It's pretty tough though, because it's like if I get on there, I'm gonna make friends with everybody because that's part of what you do is part of like an professional working group, and then they're voting on something where I'm like, hey, if I get this, it's whatever, $1,000, $2,000, $10,000.
Sure.
I don't like the recusing thing should be kind of the last resort, but there's got to be a better way to do it where you've got folks on there who you want for the governance side, but they're not particularly the builders or something like that.
That's part of the driver for having a large group too. It's like it's very easy to be friends with the 2 people out of a group of 4 and get the thumbs up, right?
Have we met?
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, like I appreciate that concern, but to me it's much more critical to like get the sort of the right voices in there and the people that are gonna properly scope and improve the network. So
sure,
that's the take.
Super cool, dude. I'm trying to think if I don't see anything else on my notes. Is there anything that you're looking to follow this week that's super exciting?
I mean, I'm watching these data only onboards. There's Helium mobile tour on tomorrow. Right. I'm moderating a panel. I have to come up. Oh, what do you want? Here's a question, and maybe people can throw some stuff in the chat because I haven't come up with the questions yet. What should I ask Coco, who is the head of Helium Mobile, and Mario, who's the head of the mobile network? And
Coco's
sort of
head of product, right? Or is she now the entire thing?
She might be like a GM of subscriber.
She's the big boss. Hell yeah.
She is the big boss. Yeah. And yeah. So you've got 2 parties, right? Like there's the network, the hotspots get sold, all of that stuff, the carrier relationships, that's Mario. And then Coco is everything subscriber. Shoot. What do we want to know from them? This thing's going to be live streamed, so it'll get back to you.
Yeah. I mean, some of the stuff just off the top of my head is, I was thinking this today, is like, how long is this thing going to be $20 a month? Like, when does that break, if ever? Mm-hmm. And is that something where a year down the line it starts creeping up? Mm-hmm. I think that may be my first thing. And then how do we make it even easier for my neighbors to get on board? I think that's you've talked about that a little bit, but just, it's weird because you want them to be involved in crypto because there's this like really fun gambling upside. But at the same time, people are scared by it. Oh, Kevin, when are we going to get truly unlimited data? I didn't realize it wasn't unlimited, but maybe I don't use enough data.
It's it hits like speed caps after. I think it's pretty generous, but maybe somebody could quote me on the number. But after a couple of dozen gigs or something like that, it starts to throttle down.
Okay. Let's see. Travis, we put a bit of thought into this. Let's see. So I'm just going back into some of the comments. I don't think there's anything to do with your thing tomorrow. Is there a recent IoT coverage map? Isn't it the Helium Geek did this, right?
Yeah. I'll send you a link, Suburban Crypto, because it's hard to share through this call. But this, if you haven't seen it, is the map. Maybe I can pull it up.
And I should give Suburban a shout out because he came up with this super cool idea to buy what was like the older generators, the Generac things. Like he goes around and finds them on deals. Badass generator. It's got a big light pole on it. So you just put antennas on it and then you can drag that wherever you want to. Whatever. Now we're going back to the disaster preparedness. But super cool.
And I should double that sort of credit where credit's due. Him sharing some of those like links or screenshots to those auction sites really shaped the design of like that thing that I showed earlier.
Cool. Super cool.
So I love the sort of community input that happened along that process.
Yeah, and it's not done yet. I think going back to the disaster preparedness piece is that when Joey and I were talking to Sean at K38, she was saying, "Hey, this hurricane thing it's gonna take North Carolina a while to rebuild because the roads are gone in some places." But she said there's also going to be flooding events this winter in California, the Central Valley. I think it was the Central Valley. Where she's like, "Hey, if you look at the water table now, it's already super high. If we get just a little bit of rain, like normal rain, there's going to be these flooding events," which is what she specializes in when there's standing water for a couple of days and you need something like a jet ski to go around and pick people and pets up and rescue stuff, kind of prepping for that. So I thought that was pretty interesting to think ahead and say like, hey, just like Florida, we know there's going to be a disaster pretty much every September, October in Florida. Like, let's prep for these things and be ready when they come down, because you can't stop it. So,
and it rained here this morning, so it begins.
Yeah. Kicking off. Travis, we put a bit of thought into this. Travis, are you talking about the IoT working group stuff? I think that's what he's talking about. This is like from our conversation 4 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's hard to track what that popped in.
Yeah. We got to figure out a way to make these slightly better, so I have a better structure for us to understand it. But yeah, super cool stuff.
Oh, it was probably the recusing yourself bit. We did talk a lot about that.
Yeah. I'm still not sure.
Sweet.
Not convinced.
Yeah.
All right. Fucking hey, Joey. I think that wraps it for today. I know you got stuff to do. Super good to see you on here. And we will not see you next week, right? Because it's the third Monday or something like that. So Helium will be doing their community call.
Correct.
So
yep.
I always think that like, maybe I'll stream at the same time. Then I'm like, fuck, I'll take the day off. So
I think I don't know. I'm like a kid in a candy store or something, it's like waiting for Santa Claus to come for these metal CNC bent parts. So keep an eye out on Twitter or something, because I'm definitely going to be showing those off.
Where did you order those things from? You said it was cut, send, or send, cut, send, something like that?
Send, cut, send, yeah. Here, I'll do a little screen. It's you know what? It's on the...
You put my glasses on again so I can share whatever you're going to share.
Yeah.
Are you sharing a screen or something?
Give me a hot second.
Yeah, take your time. I mean, I think this stuff, while you're doing that, this stuff is super cool, is enabling people to understand how to make like what's in their imagination. And with 3D printers, that's super cool, because I've got one just off to my right here. Joey can send me whatever he's got. I can print it up. Anyone can send me anything. Like, there's tons and tons of designs already on the internets in general. But one thing I've seen with the 3D printing stuff is that it's plastic, and it's not always like the most rugged thing. And sometimes you do want to beat someone over the head with your device, and it's got to be strong enough to do that. That's probably not the right way to say that. Okay, Let me see if I can share Joey's screen, and it's this thing. Video source, Joey's screen. Enhance. Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. So the cool thing that I'll say from an enabling anyone to do this without learning Fusion 360 or whatever is, like, I did my prototypes in cardboard, and then I kind of measured everything out from there. But you can actually just like take that piece of cardboard, go scan it, put it into Illustrator or whatever, and you can upload like an AI file or whatever.
Dang.
And then,
that's right.
Yeah. And you go in and like you can grab, that didn't work. I don't know. Where's my pipe? Yeah.
What did you break, Joey?
Yeah, I broke it. But basically, like, you would go and grab this thing, and there's a little menu that says, like, I want this to be a 90-degree bend. Excuse me. And then you grab like any hole and you tell it like what kind of hardware you want in there, stuff like that. So it's
cool.
It's pretty intuitive. Like, I was a little, afraid of it jumping into it, but I guess Brave doesn't like the 3D view, but if I hit the 3D thing, you would see all these bends and all the bits and stuff. But
okay.
And you
cool.
get the whole order, and
nice.
Just, like,
and
my
I'll say,
right? Yeah.
You're super good at this, and Travis is also a wizard at this 3D stuff. Like, if you want to ever figure anything out on 3D, I'm not going to volunteer Travis's time for free, but by God, come on the GK server and tag him and be like, hey, I'm working on this project. Very likely he knows exactly what to do.
Yeah. It's fun. Like it's a little bit of a puzzle every time you do this kind of stuff. But it is very rewarding to get that perfect part and then all the pieces just fit together. So
yeah,
it'll be fun.
Yeah. Rad when it works. All right, dude.
Yep.
I think that's
Cool.
it. We'll see you 2 weeks and I'll see you on Discord
Sounds
anytime.
good.
All right, guys.
Great.
Thanks. Leets.
Bye.